Coming up next on the Retirement Halftime Show, investing without emotion is easier said than done. How you can follow the data instead of your gut to make more money. Then having a conversation about money with the person you're dating. The one technique that makes it easier. And Andrew Moorhead reports on the effort to save produce from rotting in the field. How you can help get it to an area food pantry. Then later, talking to Purdue's new football coach about strategic decision making. How his locker room advice could guide your portfolio decisions. Now on the Retirement Halftime Show.
You wouldn't play a game the second half the same way you would the first, especially if you had the lead. This is the Retirement Halftime Show, helping you maintain your lead in retirement.
I'm Heather McWilliams, and welcome to the Retirement Halftime Show. We are joined by Alexander Joyce with ReJoyce Financial. Alex, today we are talking about emotional investing. Investing without emotion, I think, easier said than done, right?
Yeah, I mean it is your hard-earned money that you have raised. I mean, you have put in everything that you have. You have been disciplined. You have been selfless, if you will, in some regard. You have, you've said no to yourself. You've said no to your children. You've said no to your family. You have been goals-based, and you have kept your eye on the prize. And even though it doesn't feel like that all the time, the truth is, if you have started a 401k and you have put money in there over the course of some time and it has grown by compound interest and you have taken advantage of the company match, looking back, looking at it today, it's difficult. Right.
It's difficult. And I'm guilty of it too, chasing the market, overselling in panic. Something I love in your book, ReJoyce in Retirement, you talk about yellow money or that leave-on money. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, yellow money is actively managed money. Green money is safe money that you have, like your emergency fund, if you will. That's green. Yellow, actively managed. Red, go buy a stock, right? And, Robin Hood type style, if you would. And it is okay to have multiple, assets in each one of those buckets, but understanding, risk tolerance does matter as you approach or near and get mature, and you're thinking about, what does this end of work thing look like? Right? Different for everybody. As we have mentioned before, people are unretiring and people are wanting to retire earlier than ever. And so I think that having a well-rounded plan established, laid out, roadmap, style, if you will, predictable, have confidence in it, have secure peace of mind. That's everything, isn't it?
I do like how simple you make it too in this book, though, how you break it down with red money, yellow money, green money. It makes it a lot easier to understand, especially for people like me. And I think that's why you really do need to work with a professional and know which type of professional you're working with, because there are different kinds. And I think a lot of people don't know that too.
They really don't. I mean, my industry, no offense, my industry, they love to tell you how much they know. And I always say this when I do speaking engagements. Doesn't matter how many people are there. I always open with, well-established expectations is a roadmap to a prosperous relationship. My goal, job this evening is to keep this information as simple as possible. Einstein said something I always say is that if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And, it goes back to a study I read from ARP, but that it said that 73% of individuals in retirement or getting ready to retire have yet talked to an advisor of any kind. And most people are like, well, can you believe that? And most people would say, well, yeah. And here's what I always kind of crack up and think about. It said that let's just say the 27% that actually did go out and take that leap of faith, if you will. They go out and they talk to an advisor for the very first time. They come back home and their friends and family gather around. They say, how did it go? You know what I think they said? I have no idea what that guy was talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because it's heavy.
Right.
It's heavy information.
It's heavy.
It's stuff that people, we may have a school teacher that teaches, 10th grade math, right? We may have an engineer, we have an architect that builds bridges. We have some people that open up hearts and change them out for a living, and it's like, wow. But it's like, hey, have you ever bought some stock on your own? People are like, well, I'm not really sure if I don't feel comfortable. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And so I think that it takes professionals and it takes a practice like ours, depending on where you are in life. I mean, we help the public, we help people. That's what I do for a living. I'm passionate about it. But the thing is, what people really, the misunderstanding to me is that people don't know where to get started. That's the issue.
It is the issue. It's a full-time job, and I'm glad I'm not the one doing it, but you do need a professional.
You do.
Bottom line.
Bottom line.
So if somebody is sitting at home kind of wondering, okay, I need to talk to somebody. I'm not sure who. I know there's all different types. Yeah. I think you're the guy simply because you're amazing, but also you're holistic, so you guys can do everything under one roof, which I love.
That's the goal. That is the ReJoyce way. We built the tax planning, tax filing, estate planning, legal service, financial planning, wealth management, all under one roof, Heather. And so there isn't a situation that surprises me anymore.
Yeah, right? That's true.
It's non-biased. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect family, and we all have our own issues. And I think that we have to start someplace, and don't be shy, don't be bashful. Open your heart up, right? And I think that once you do that, you'll feel better. And then I think that we're able to truly understand the unique proposition and family in front of us, so we can create and paint the beautiful canvas that we can.
You will feel better. I know I felt better after reading this book. If somebody wants to get their hands on a free copy of this book and or talk to you, what is the best way to go about doing that?
Just call. I mean, rejoice in your retirement, everything you need to know to get everything you want. It's a good read. It's simple. It's basic, down to earth, but you'll learn.
Yes.
Right?
I've
just
learned.
Pay us a visit by calling. Go to the website and just say you want to chat.
Yeah, I love it.
That's it.
Thank you, Alex. That's always great information, and we're going to have a whole lot more information coming up next.
Coming up next on the Retirement Halftime Show, the need to attack credit card debt before retirement begins. One technique that eliminates debt fast. Then, shifting gears when there's trouble ahead. Purdue football coach Ryan Walters goes deep into planning. His advice could help guide your retirement decisions.
Don't let anxiety ruin your retirement. Get a second opinion about your current plan. Call the experts at ReJoyce Financial today at 317-903-9157 and see if you're on the right track.
And look who I have here, Miss Monica Allen. Girls Want to Have Fun, just published in May, and there's some good nuggets, good gems in here. 4 Steps to Financial Freedom. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
What does it mean for you to have a book like this? Again, the purpose for why this is so important, not for just women, but for everyone, for families.
I think right now with COVID and inflation and just the things that have happened to families over the last few years made me realize that I need to take the knowledge that I have in a simple format so that people can utilize it and they can get their household finances in order so that they can go and talk to someone in an office about their retirement.
Having that money conversation can be really, really difficult. Some people are afraid to talk about it. They're anxious about it. They're fearful that I already know that I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I just don't want to deal with it. If I don't deal with it, then maybe it will go away. It doesn't go away, right?
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. And when we are having those conversations, especially before you decide to get married or you're living with someone, that's a very important conversation to have, right? And why?
It is an important conversation to have, although it's not very romantic. Let's be honest here. I think that every couple should explore a little bit about each other's debt before they fall in love, if possible. A lot of times that doesn't happen. And many couples, they'll go for couple counseling at their church or something, but they've already committed on a date, and it's, pretty set in stone at that point. So it's important to know, just so you know, that when you get married to someone, you inherit their debt.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily change them and get maybe everything all cleaned up, but you can both work on it and commit to this is what's acceptable for us and try to get some of those steps worked on before you ever marry.
A lot of people enter a marriage or a relationship or partnership with debt, as you mentioned, and some of that debt is credit card debt. How should people attack the credit card debt?
The credit card debt is something that is just rampant. I mean, it's so easy to put it on credit cards. It's painless to put the card up there. I have this story in the book that talks about my kids and their view on money. We have 4 kids. They're all 5 years apart. One dealt with cash, one dealt with checkbook, one dealt with money mover where you throw out cash, and the other one now is a debit card person.
Okay.
So just the 5 years, it changes all the time. But one thing about that every money manager will say about credit cards is that they are painless. You throw it up there and then you start getting the bill maybe a month later. And if you were on vacation, that debt can really pile up.
Oh yeah, the interest, everything that comes.
It does,
yeah.
and it just compounds and become very overwhelming. What we say is, I say free up as much money as you can, and any bonuses, any tax refunds, start getting that credit card debt tackled and gone. And vow, if you're going to use credit cards, and some people just can't use credit cards.
Yeah.
They can't trust themselves with them. But if you are going to use them, to pay them off every month.
What is the best way to pay a credit card off?
Before the due date,
Before the due
actually,
date.
so you don't accrue interest. If you pay it off before the due date, you'll never get the interest. If you're lagging behind, you'll get some interest tacked on. If you don't pay your credit card by the due date, you also get a fee, which can range between $30 and $48. So you don't want to do that.
What about you have maybe 5 different credit cards? They range in amounts that you owe. Should you pay the highest first or the lowest first and work your way up?
That's really subject to varying debates. But what I say is, on any type of a debt repayment, which I call a debt locomotive, and we'll get into that, is to start with that smallest credit card. So you can see that you're making progress.
Progress, yes.
And when you make progress, it will motivate you then to do more and more.
Yes.
So if you have a $200 credit card and you can wipe it out in a month, and you work, get rid of all those. I would cut them up, because
You're not
I
tempted.
really would, because if you have 5 or 6 credit cards, narrow it down to 1 or 2. Use one maybe for the gas in your car and one for expendables, but with the guarantee that you promise to pay them off every month.
Absolutely, great tip. 2 women, we're sitting here as 2 women, and you believe that women are better, the better person, if you will, in terms of finances over men. Why is that?
Well, there's some scientific basis for this. It's not just something that I pulled out of the hat. I have a medical background, and researchers say this: men, before they were born, have their brain washed with testosterone so that they can go and hunt and kill and bring home our food.
And provide.
Yes, provide for us. So this is called a brainwash. And what that does is it makes them much less good or productive at being a multitasker. Women do not have that testosterone wash, and women therefore can multitask. When we're multitasking, we know that Johnny needs new cleats for soccer. We know that this year we probably shouldn't take the Disney vacation. We're going to go camping close to home. We know who needs to go where and when, and that is a gift that we have. And whether women face this knowledge or not, they are running the family financial household.
Absolutely.
They are running it. And so we need to take our spot and utilize it to the best and use each other's gifts in the partnership, whichever partnership we're in, and make it so that our family does well and we're using the best person to control the finances.
They're able to thrive, the entire family thrive.
Right.
That can be, again, a very difficult conversation. How do you convince your partner, your spouse, who is a woman, to say, I really should be doing this? How do you have that conversation?
I think that comes with open communications in whatever relationship that you're in. And we probably know who's the spender and who's the saver in the relationship. And as long as there's open communication and you have some spending money that you can blow any way you want it. If you're a golf club person, then you can put this money towards your golf clubs. You might not be able to buy one every month, but you'll be able to know that you're putting money towards that. But there's one person that's a saver, and that's usually the person that's best able to handle the family finances.
Absolutely. Money is spiritual. How is it? How is money spiritual? How is this relationship with money spiritual?
I think that we all know that there's a lot of needy people, and most people will say there's always somebody that needs a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
There's always somebody in a
who's
worse position. And I think when you have money tightened up around your neck, it's a noose. I call it an invisible noose. It makes you feel like you're going to cry at any time, because it can be a small thing that happens that just throws you over the edge. But when you can loosen that noose, money does become spiritual, because then you can do what your heart desires with it. And most of us are very generous people, but we can't be when we can't pay our next bill. So it allows, when you let the financial bondage go, it allows you to be more of who you are. Whether that be godly, generous, gracious, more at peace, but you're more of who you are, and you don't have that financial stress
Still to come, retired and making a difference in our community. Andrea Moorhead reports on the organization looking for help harvesting produce for Indiana food pantries. You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. Don't let anxiety ruin your retirement. Get a second opinion about your current plan. Call the experts at ReJoyce Financial today at 317-903-9157 and see if you're on the right track.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
ReJoyce Financial gives back with Andrea Moorhead, highlighting the people and organizations making life better in our community.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I'm your host, Alexander Joyce, and of course with me is Andrea Moorhead. She is our community impact anchor, and we're sharing a story about an organization that goes out there and collects produce, if you will, and volunteers their time to help other people. Kind of walk us through that.
Well, unfortunately, Alex, there are thousands of people across the state of Indiana who are food insecure.
Sure.
But this local nonprofit organization that you speak of, as well as farmers across the entire state of Indiana, they are coming together to make sure they end hunger. The Sunflower Festival Labor Day weekend ushers in the fall fun at Stuckey Farms in Sheridan. Behind the 8 acres of bright yellow are 24 acres of apple trees.
Is that one?
This one up here?
Yeah.
Ready for the picking.
This is my first time picking apples. I'm having so much fun.
From farm to table, there's joy in stocking up on your favorite Stuckey salsa, and of course, apple cider. But have you ever wondered what happens to the fruits and vegetables that aren't picked?
Because the reality is there's really good apples that have fallen off because you pick, kids come through and they pick one apple and 3 fall off. So we take the good ones off the ground.
Dawn Barnes is a director with the Society of St. Andrew. The organization has been gleaning America's fields and feeding America's hungry since 1979. The United Methodist Hunger Relief nonprofit
In 2018, we were one of the hungriest states in the United States.
works with farmers around the country, including 45 in Indiana, to supply fresh produce. Stuckey Farms has been part of the program for 6 years. Why is it important for you and your family to do so, to give back?
I was always taught that, whatever ways that you are blessed, you can't take that for granted, and you should be giving back. My family, we're Christians, and we feel like that's part of our duty, that God has blessed us with this opportunity, and we like to share it.
These apple trees are so plentiful right now.
Like this morning, they told us go to the back middle rows and you can take anything on those rows.
Because it's a you-pick farm, we can't pick off the trees, so we just get the stuff on the ground. The area that I grew up in Putnam County, there was a lot of food insecurity there, and so I see the need, and it's great not to have the food go to waste.
Jerry Garrett is retired and volunteers about 2 times a week.
Picked apples, cucumbers, butternut squash, lots of corn, lots of tomatoes. Trying to think, we picked blueberries, we picked cherry tomatoes, just old greens, a lot of kale and greens in the spring.
When you look at these apples, what does this mean when you're picking them up? What is going on in your mind as you're picking?
On the ground here, we have to inspect the apples and everything, and I think, would I give this one to my grandma, or, because she grew up very poor, during the Depression and everything, and, I want to give them the best product possible.
Volunteers gather the produce, which is later cleaned and given to nearby food pantries.
For what we find here in Indiana, it's the working hungry. It's people who are working, 2 or 3 jobs that are not making a living wage and not able to meet all their bills. So they're paying bills, but food is an easy way to fill in the gap that they could go to a pantry and help out with their budget for the month.
What have you taken away from this?
Well, there are muscles in my back I didn't know that I had, first of all.
Right. I bet. Wayne is another volunteer.
I have picked cabbages, corn, strawberries, apples. It really makes you appreciate our brothers and sisters who are immigrant farm workers. Yes. We work out here for 2 hours and we're exhausted. And I think when I'm doing something, we're bending over all the time, picking up cabbages or strawberries or whatever. Those people do it 8, 10, 12 hours a day and give us all the food that we have. And we just don't have enough sympathy for the job they do to bring the food to our table.
The Society of St. Andrew could use more volunteers.
We want volunteers to come out, and we want them to bring their friends and family.
Just go to their website to sign up on the portal, and you'll be matched with a farm near you. With annual operating costs of $300,000, your donations are greatly needed. Consider becoming a monthly donor, knowing your support is feeding our Hoosier friends and neighbors.
It's an enjoyable experience to know that you're doing some good, and it's the right thing to do.
So when you buy your favorite Stuckey Farms homemade items in the store, pick apples from its orchard.
Any more?
This one too.
This one?
Yeah.
Or grab a few pumpkins from the patch. Don't forget, food insecurity is a growing challenge in our state, and all of us can help reduce waste and end hunger.
Until then, we will continue to glean and work together and get the best food out to those who need it.
And if you would like to volunteer or even give money to the organization, just go to our website at ReJoyceFinancial.com/Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. Stay tuned, folks. There'll be more sure to come.
Still to come on the Retirement Halftime Show, go into the team meeting room with Purdue football coach Ryan Walters. His advice for staying focused on the game plan could help you stay focused on your retirement plan.
Get a second opinion about your retirement plan. Schedule a no-cost, no-obligation visit with the experts at ReJoyce Financial. Call 317-903-9157 now and rejoice in your retirement.
Planning to win. Coaching strategies for financial success. Here's Alexander Joyce and Purdue University head football coach Ryan Walters.
I'm here with Coach Walters, and we are talking about strategic decision making, adapting to a plan. You know, like from your perspective, it is halftime, right? And you guys, I mean, you are a field goal ahead, and you are right there. And I mean, of course, everybody wants to win the game, but it's hard, right? I mean, the pressure is on. Such is true with a market like this, right? I mean, the economy is difficult. People are right there getting ready to retire. Clutch decisions have to happen. Benchmarking a portfolio to get that win, and so it's difficult. You know, I know our games are different, but decision making, it has to happen, right? I mean, you have to make a decision. It has to be strategic, and sometimes it comes from the gut because it's based on experience, right? You've been there before. And so carrying that mission forward is like right there in the moment. Tell me about not necessarily an ideal time, but how does that feel when your team is there? I mean, they are worn out and you're right there approaching the win and it is clutch. I mean, that's got to feel great, but difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think in order to make impactful decisions, and not be overwhelmed with the pressure or the circumstances surrounding the decision, you got to have confidence in what decisions you're making. And to me, confidence comes from preparation. And so when you're preparing for that moment, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it, whether it's drawing from experience, using the data, right? I'm a big believer in you use the data first because that's telling you the story. And in order for you to come up with the game plan, then you execute said game plan until that game plan doesn't work, right? And so, you know, the decision to deviate from the said plan has to come from a place of experience, a place of observation, and seeing what has worked and what hasn't worked. So, you know, I equate it to like a halftime adjustment, right? Like the game plan isn't working or is not working as well as you thought it was. You go into halftime, you take the data from what has happened in the game,
sure,
and look at, you know, where you thought you would have hit certain benchmarks and you didn't. Well, how do you adjust? And that comes from experience, and it comes from, like you said, your gut. And ultimately, your gut that has to come from a confident place from your preparation and however detailed it was.
Right, the data that got you there, right? Because you're there for a reason.
Right.
You know, the team trusts you and they put that confidence into your leadership. And you do the same thing with your staff, right? I mean, you have different coordinators in place to make sure that they're carrying the mission forward. I mean, you know, sometimes it's, of course, the long-term goal is the championship. You want to win. Right. Such is true with our clients. I mean, the long-term goal, the energy, the effort, I always equate it to like this Mount Everest story I always tell, right? A lot of adrenaline climbing, a lot of training goes into climbing Mount Everest, but when you get to the very top, you stick the American flag out there, you look out, you're anxious, you're nervous, because the deaths and injuries don't happen going up, they happen coming down. And so it's the same momentum, really, and I can't speak for you, Coach, but it's got to be the same adrenaline. Right, that rush, that of course, seeing your team and seeing your players just really focus in at the same time to drive that mission forward. That's got to be a total. The feeling has to just be, wow, right? I mean, it's got to be, you know, something excellent, if you would. And so maybe talk to me about some of the clutch decisions that have to be made right now, even though the energy maybe from your team isn't as you expected. Sometimes that happens, right? You lay out the plan, the data is in line, but it's still not going according to plan. How do you hurry up and maybe shift gears and change? Kind of like the way that we would automatically rebalance a portfolio, if you will. Right. So when you're talking in clipboard to the team and the data and everything is lining up, but the plan just isn't really happening the way that you wanted to, how do you maintain your cool?
Yeah, I think, you know, as a leader, you have to be even keeled, whether it's going good or bad.
Right.
And I think that presents a sense of calm to the people that are following you. If you're up and down, then your team will be up and down. And it's hard to maintain steady improvement if you're doing so. So when you do have to deviate from the plan in order to not generate panic, if you will,
right.
You have to lay out, okay, this is the why we're switching from plan A to plan B. This is how plan B is going to work, and you have to be confident and calm in your delivery, and you have to believe in it. Ultimately, if you don't believe in what you're preaching, then you know people can.
They're going to read it.
They're going to read that. So I definitely think it's important to stay calm through the storm and confident, you know, with your approach, because if you are, then the people that are following you will believe.
They'll feel it. Right. I mean, the intuition, they'll read it. And sometimes, I mean, when you're changing that plan all of a sudden, if the confidence is there, there's no reason to ask why.
Right.
Because they trust it.
Right.
Right.
And I also think it's important to answer the why without being asked. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, it is, you know, if you're a leader, you got to know the ins and outs to everything that you're presenting, so that it calms the crowd.
Absolutely. There'll be more with Coach Walters. Stay tuned. There's more show to come.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
Thank you for watching the Retirement Halftime Show. If you have questions about today's show, give us a call, send us a text, or go to our website. Most importantly, maintain your lead in retirement. I'm Alexander Joyce, and I'll see you next time.
Are you ready for retirement? Take the quiz at ReJoyceFinancial.com and see if you're on the right track to prosperity in your golden years. That's ReJoyceFinancial.com and click on the free tools tab.